You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. As always, I'm your host, Larry Lace, and on today's episode of the Central City Rewatch, we dive into Episode 7, Power Outage. Before we do that, of course, let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments section below. If you've seen it, let me know how you rank it among the other episodes of this season. And with that, let's dive right into today's episode. In the 7th episode of The Flash's debut season titled Power Outage, the narrative stakes are raised significantly, both in terms of emotional intensity and thematic complexity. Originally airing on November 25th, 2014, the episode showcases a dynamic convergence of superhero action and existential vulnerability, marking a pivotal moment in the development of Barry Allen's character. By examining the narrative structure, character arc, symbolic undertones, and theoretical implications, we can understand how this episode elevates The Flash from the formulaic genre television into a platform for more profound narrative experimentation. The central plot revolves around Farouk Gibran, a metahuman who becomes known as Blackout after a Star Labs accident leaves him with the ability to absorb and manipulate electricity. His entrance into Central City's metahuman pantheon introduces the thematic juxtaposition energy versus impotence. Barry Allen, whose powers are literally drawn from energy, finds himself completely powerless against Blackout, thus symbolizing a loss of identity and control. This reversal, where the hero is rendered helpless by a mirror of his own power, sets up a rich psychological and symbolic terrain for exploration. Barry's loss of speed is not merely a narrative device for tension, it functions symbolically as a crisis of self. Having come to identify so strongly with his powers, Barry is forced to confront the existential question: who is he without them? The writers use this premise to test Barry's moral fortitude and his resilience in the face of despair. His introspective journey in this episode reflects the classic Jungian archetype of the hero's confrontation with the shadow. The shadow here is not just Farouk's darkness, but Barry's own fear of inadequacy, helplessness, and moral compromise. The internal conflict he experiences aligns closely with Jung's individuation process, where the loss of a dominant function, in this case speed, initiates a deeper encounter with the self. Today's episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus, the streaming service with something for everyone. When it comes to streaming, there's a lot out there, but few platforms deliver like Paramount Plus. Whether you're into gripping dramas, laugh-out-loud comedies, true crime documentaries, or blockbuster films, Paramount Plus has you covered. You can stream everything from hit series like Criminal Minds, NCIS, and Tulsa King, to massive movie franchises like Mission Impossible, Transformers, and Top Gun. Plus, there's a constantly growing library of Paramount Plus originals that keep you coming back for more, including 1923 Special Ops Lioness. And it's not just shows and movies, you also get live sports, including the NFL on CBS, college football, the UEFA Champions League matches, and you can even stream your local CBS station live for breaking news and special events. Here's the best part. Right now, you can try Paramount Plus free for 1 week. Yep, a full week of unlimited streaming completely free. Just go to ParamountPlus.com or click the link in the description to start your free 1-week trial today. So if you're looking for your next binge, or you just want a platform that gives you everything, from heart-pounding action to award-winning series, make it Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus, where entertainment lives. And now, let's get back to our episode. Barry's confrontation with weakness, vulnerability, and doubt functions as a symbolic initiation, a rite of passage necessary for psychological integration. It also bears existential tones, echoing Jean-Paul Sartre's idea that identity is forged not by essence, but through action in the face of absurdity. The theme of identity is further explored through the dual narrative lines running through the episode. While Barry contends with his loss of power, Harrison Wells and the Star Labs team must protect their secrets from the prying eyes of William Tachman, the Clock King. The juxtaposition of these two threats, one external and one internal, intensifies the narrative pace while also reinforcing the duality motif. Barry's physical power loss contrasts with Wells' ethical ambiguity. This episode serves as a crucible for various character developments, enabling the ensemble cast to navigate personal and ethical dilemmas. The narrative avoids formulaic resolutions by introducing stakes that are both physically and psychologically significant. Wells, whose mysterious motives are gradually being unveiled across the season, displays a chilling resolve in this episode. When faced with the potential exposure of his secrets, he acts decisively and lethally. His decision to kill Tachman to protect the Star Labs team not only saves lives, but deepens the moral ambiguity of his character. This strategic ambivalence places Wells within the lineage of television's morally ambiguous antiheroes, akin to Walter White in Breaking Bad or Tony Soprano in The Sopranos, who defy binary ethical classifications. The question of whether the ends justify the means haunts his character arc and prompts viewers to reflect on the blurry boundaries between utilitarian ethics and authoritarian control. Through Wells, the show interrogates the very foundation of moral calculus and hero narratives. Can one claim to be a protector while committing morally dubious acts in the name of a greater good? This question reverberates through the episode and becomes a subtextual commentary on the large superhero genre. Unlike traditional depictions of superhero omnipotence, The Flash frequently emphasizes vulnerability, both physical and emotional. In Power Outage, Barry's helplessness is mirrored by his emotional turmoil, particularly in his actions with Iris West and Detective Joe West. The tension between Barry's two identities, forensic scientist and superhero, is heightened by his fear of letting those he loves down. His emotional fragility, often obscured by his speed and bravado, is laid bare. More broadly, this episode exemplifies how the genre fiction can tackle substantive philosophical questions without sacrificing entertainment value. By embedding existential and ethical dilemmas within a superhero framework, The Flash invites its audience to reflect on real-world themes through speculative allegory. Of particular note is the way in which this episode uses pacing and cinematography to underline Barry's vulnerability. The absence of his superspeed creates a stark contrast in the episode's visual language. Instead of the usual rapid movement and frenetic chase sequences, we get slower, more intimate scenes that focus on dialogue, facial expressions, and emotional beats. The directorial choice to slow down the visual tempo reflects Barry's internal disorientation and emphasizes his new limitations. This shift in visual storytelling resonates with Andre Bazine's argument on cinematic realism, where prolonged takes and close-up compositions can evoke greater psychological depth than rapid editing. Here, the slow pace not only reflects Barry's external limitations, but also cultivates an immersive The presence of Blackout also introduces an opportunity for thematic commentary on revenge and trauma. Farouk's transformation into a villain is driven by a tragic accident, one that robbed him of his normal life and led him in perpetual pain. Unlike other villains in the series who often seek power or chaos, Farouk is motivated by grief and resentment, making him a more sympathetic antagonist. His vendetta against Wells and Star Labs positions him not as a mere obstacle, but as a mirror to Barry, a reminder that unchecked scientific ambition can yield not only heroes, but also victims. This adds complexity to the moral scheme of the show, inviting comparisons to classic tragic figures in literature whose villainy is born from loss rather than malice. Farouk's descent mirrors the arc of Frankenstein's monster, a creature forged by scientific hubris and abandoned by its creators. His vendetta underscores the ethical liabilities of unchecked scientific exploration, a recurrent motif in science fiction from Mary Shelley to modern television. The viewer is not only asked to fear Farouk, but also to empathize with the systemic failures that birthed him. A scientific grounded analysis of the episode can benefit from media theory, especially Marshall McLuhan's idea that the medium is the message. The medium of superhero television offers a framework where powers are often external representations of internal states. Barry's speed is not merely a physical attribute, but a metaphor for his need to keep ahead of grief, guilt, and emotional complexity. When stripped of it, the audience sees Barry as a young man grappling with the trauma of his past, particularly the murder of his mother and the wrongful imprisonment of his father. One can also invoke the semiotic theory to understand the episode's subtext, the signs of power. Lightning bolts, speed trails, and glowing suits are temporarily stripped from the narrative, forcing a re-signification of Barry's heroism. When the usual symbols are removed, the question becomes, what remains? This interpretive vacuum allows for a more profound engagement with characters, interiority, and ethical intention, a hallmark of sophisticated, serialized storytelling. Additionally, psychoanalytic theory, especially the Freudian notion of castration anxiety, may inform Barry's response to his power loss. The temporary removal of his super speed can be read as a metaphorical emasculation, threatening his ability to perform as a protector and hero. His initial despair and subsequent moral reckoning reflects the stages of coping outlined in Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. By the end of the episode, Barry doesn't merely regain his powers, he earns them back through an internal realignment of purpose and identity, marking this episode as a turning point in his heroic journey. The symbolism of restoration comes not from external rescue, but from internal psychological resilience. On a narrative level, the episode employs tight plotting and parallel arcs to maintain engagement. Each subplot, from Talkman's infiltration to Caitlin and Cisco's ethical debates, reflects a central theme of control and its loss. Control over technology, emotions, and information becomes the episode's unifying thread. Even the Clock King's moniker plays into this. Time, control, and inevitability are constant undercurrents in The Flash. In here, they rise to the surface with stark clarity. The show's commitment to developing its ensemble is also visible. Caitlin Snow's medical ethics, Cisco's techno idealism, and Joe's paternal intuition all gain texture. These characters act as narrative stabilizers, offering Barry support while developing their own philosophical positions regarding power, responsibility, and loyalty. The musical score further accentuates the tension. Composer Blake Neely uses recurring motifs, but modulates them to reflect Barry's vulnerability. The usual heroic there is subdued, slower and heavier in orchestration during the scenes where Barry is powerless, then crescendos in tempo and pitch once he regains his speed. This auditory cue mirrors Barry's emotional and physical journey, allowing the viewer to experience his transformation not only visually, but sonically. From a narratological perspective, music in episodic television functions not only as a mood setter, but as an agent of narrative cohesion. The recurrence of lead motifs associated with specific emotions or actions helps to shape viewer expectations and reinforce character identity. In this case, Neely's deliberate modulation of Barry's musical theme parallels the ebb and flow of his emotional arc, subtly guiding the audience through the fluctuating dynamics of power, fear, and recovery. In terms of continuity and character development, Power Outage plants several seeds for future episodes. The Star Labs database begins tracking metas by name, setting the stage for the organized surveillance and classification that becomes central to the show's metahuman politics. The initiation of metahuman tracking also echoes themes prevalent in dystopian fiction: surveillance, classification, and the policing of the other. This narrative decision aligns the show with broader socio-political discourses on state power and individual freedom. What begins as a scientific registry quickly reveals its double-edged nature, setting up later ethical debates about control, consent, and the limits of governance. Will's use of his power super speed again teases the eventual reveal of his reverse Flash identity, while also complicating the viewer's perception of him as either ally or adversary. These breadcrumbs build narrative anticipation while reinforcing the moral ambiguity that surrounds Will's character, deepening the overall narrative structure and suspense of the season. Moreover, the episode makes significant strides in its treatment of interpersonal relationships. The trust between Barry and Joe is tested, but ultimately strengthened, reaffirming their surrogate father-son bond. Iris, though still outside the circle of knowledge, is portrayed with greater emotional depth as she senses the unspoken turmoil within Barry. Iris's portrayal in this episode subtly shifts from passive love interest to emotionally intelligent observer. Though excluded from the metahuman secret, her perceptiveness reinforces her narrative importance. This foreshadowing anticipates her future centrality in the series' moral core. By intuiting Barry's distress without access to his superhero identity, Iris exemplifies an emotional intelligence that complements Barry's scientific mind. These character dynamics are crucial for the emotional stakes of future episodes, particularly as the secrets and lies begin to unravel. More broadly, this episode exemplifies how genre fiction can tackle substantive philosophical questions without sacrificing entertainment value. By embedding existential and ethical dilemmas within a superhero framework, The Flash invites its audience to reflect on real-world themes through speculative allegory. This type of narrative sophistication places the series in conversation with other morally complex superhero works like Watchmen and Jessica Jones, where characters wrestle with guilt, trauma, and an ambiguous morality. Additionally, the episode's careful deconstruction of power as a metaphor underscores a broader cultural interrogation of agency. In contemporary superhero narratives, power is increasingly depicted as both gift and curse, as a source of alienation as much as liberation. The Flash embraces this duality, positioning Barry not as infallible force, but as a fundamentally human figure whose worth lies in perseverance and ethical commitment rather than dominance. So finally, Power Outage stands as one of the most thematically rich episodes of The Flash's inaugural season. It integrates action, emotion, and philosophical inquiry into a tightly woven narrative. By temporarily stripping Barry of his powers, the writers force both character and audience to reckon with the essence of heroism. Is it speed, strength, or something else tangible? Resilience, morality, identity? The episode suggests that true heroism lies in one's response to powerlessness, not in the possession of power itself. Through careful direction, layered writing, and a compelling antagonist, Power Outage transcends the formulaic structure of procedural superhero television. It compels viewers to confront the limits of identity and the cost of control. Not just for Barry Allen, but for all who seek to wield power responsibly. Ultimately, the episode succeeds not merely as entertainment, but as a reflection on the human condition. In the face of loss, fear, and uncertainty, Power Outage reminds us that even the fastest man alive must sometimes stop, look inward, and find the strength to start again. And with that, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on this episode. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. As always, excuse me. Thank you so much for watching and listening and for your support.